Summer is the time when I want my borders and beds to look their best. So here are my 4 tips to keep your beds and borders tip-top. This is the longest and the deepest border in my garden. It's filled with a mixture of shrubs, roses and border perennials, all carefully contoured. But in order to keep it looking good, there's one job I need to do on a regular basis. One plant that really repays deadheading is the rose. It doesn't matter what sort of rose it is. This is a lovely old rose called Rosamundi with these stripy flowers, dates back centuries. And it produces clusters of bloom, but the flower in the centre of the group always opens first. And obviously that's always the one that fades first. So the thing to do is to get your secateurs and just snip it out. Learn to differentiate between a flower that's faded and a flower that's in bud and still coming. It's fairly obvious when you look at them. They're really fresh and just bursting with promise, whereas the flower that's gone over will look distinctly faded. You're just taking it out right at the bottom of its stalk, so you'd hardly know it was there. It's quite addictive, I have to tell you, and then you can come back in a few days' time and do a few more. What it also does is stops the plant wasting energy making seeds on that faded flower. Then when all this cluster have gone, I'll take that stem right back down here, so it encourages fresh young growth. And in some roses, particularly those that repeat flower, Rosamundi doesn't, but in others it will encourage them to carry on producing blooms right the way through the summer. Instead of giving up making seeds and saying, "My work's done here, I'm finished now." Oh, no, you're not. I want more colour from my plants. Other plants might just have one flush of flower, you'll never get any more, but you can clean up the plant a bit, make it look better and conserve its energy so that it's going into the leaves, down into the root for next year's blooms. The peony is one such. You get one flush on peonies, then they start to go brown. So whip them off, back lower down to a leaf. Just above that leaf there, then you've not got unsightly stalks sticking up in the air, but what you are doing is producing a plant which looks so much better. There are 2 flowers on this stalk, one's faded, one hasn't, so leave the one that hasn't and just take off the faded one. Just work through your borders like this every few days. Not only will they look better, but it's also a very good way of getting to know your plants and how they grow. If your border's new, or in my case, there are gaps at the front, the easiest thing to do is just to go carefully between the plants with a hoe. Remembering you're skimming, not digging. You're separating the top of the plant from its roots. And when you've done that, let them dry in the sun for a while before really soaking the soil. And then you can lay a 2-inch deep mulch of something like chipped ornamental bark. That will help seal in the moisture and keep down any subsequent weed growth. Another thing that tends to happen in your beds and borders is that plants flop. Not all of them are sturdy enough to hold themselves upright. Things like alstromerias and the taller hardy geraniums just love to flop over your path and your lawn, and it's very irritating. There are various ways of corralling them. These supports here are made of powder coated steel. It has these uprights which have got little bobbles on the top. They look decorative, they're also useful. They stop you catching your eye on them when you're bending down. And then this single arc here which will stop plants from flopping forward. You can get these in different heights, some will be lower, some higher, and use the one that suits the ultimate height of the plant you're growing. Peonies tend to flop as well, and the classic peony support looks like this. Here you've got 3 legs and then a circle at the top with crisscross wires. The idea is to put this in place before the plant grows through it, and then it'll be well supported and you won't see it. Don't try and push it on the plant once it's come up this high, because it's going to damage it. So when you see the plant coming up, get this in over the top, sturdily placed into the ground. It will then grow up through it, and eventually the support will disappear but be doing its job. You don't necessarily have to get elaborate shop-bought supports, you can make your own. Here I've supported these delphiniums with just steel rods with a bobble on the top, and between them all I've run string so that when the delphiniums grow up through that string, the crisscross pattern will help support them. Sometimes if you tie delphiniums individually to a cane, where they're tied, if a strong wind comes, it can just snap them off. I prefer to allow them a little more movement, but they're still held in place by these strings, and I'll make them higher up as the stems elongate. It's just a case of right support for the right plant, crucially at the right time, before it's grown too tall. Gaps. No matter how hard you try, there are always gaps popping up in your beds and borders, often at the front, and that's exactly where you see them, isn't it? Now, grey soil is not attractive. It's very important for growing plants, but even its mother wouldn't call it beautiful. So the thing to do is to work it over slightly with a trowel and just enrich it a bit. In the hole, pull back the earth, firmly hit it with my fingers. I'm planting it just a little bit deeper than it's been in the pot, so that all the root ball is entirely covered. And in front of it, the osteo. Into the hole, fill around it, and just make sure there are no air gaps. And you think about what that looked like before, just a rather dreary hole, and then instant satisfaction. There are lots of plants at the front of the beds and borders here that I've popped in. Things like the creeping dead nettle, that lamium on the corner there. But the thing I love most is the sea thrift, the sea pink, armeria, on the corner of the footpath. Seems to like it there. They're all giving me, if you like, an introduction to the border, rather than it not starting until 3 feet in. The border comes right down to the edge of the lawn, and your garden is all the better for being fully furnished. So there you have it, 4 useful jobs in your borders this summer. Deadheading, make them look bright and cheery. Weeding to avoid competition with other plants, keeping the soil moist and mulched. Staking anything that looks as though it's going to fall over, and then planting something bright and cheery to fill your gaps. Good afternoon's work, that, don't you think? Gardening has changed my life, so let me show you how it can change yours. I'll be posting new videos every week, so subscribe and let's get gardening together.